Hello there, welcome back. This is a one-off episode. I'm just going to talk about the fabulous Baron Munchausen by Karel Zemen. It's available in second run in the UK. This is one of the films I've been wanting to see for a while. Hard to get hold of for a long time because it's an Eastern European film, and there's a lot of them that for a long time were hard to get hold of because of the Cold War. And just basically the lack of interest in the films themselves. I mean, these are hard to sell. A film like this, which is in a foreign language and is very strange, it's hard to sell. I mean, it's only people like me who are like big film fans who are really going to pay the money to see it. Most people won't. I heard about this when The Adventures of Baron Munchausen by Terry Gilliam came out. It was one of those ones, oh, I have to see that, because he raved about it at the time, when even the film was like, oh yeah, there was a German version that was rubbish, but the Zeman film was great, but good luck trying to find a copy of that to see. So it was one of those things like, okay, the guy who's made the new film is saying you got to see this other version of the same story. So, always kind of wanted to see it, but I never got a chance to see it. It was just hard to get hold of. There's stuff like Second Run, who did this, they've been releasing for a while, like Eastern European films. There's a lot of other companies do that, but from my head it's always Second Run who seem to be the ones who have the specialist focus in that. Or if the other ones I've noticed, like if I'm looking for Eastern European films, you always think Second Run is going to be the ones that'll have the really good stuff. So I think a lot of the films, I really like Eastern European fantastical films, and I'm sure most of them are coming from Second Run. So it's hard to get hold of. I only got a hold of this last year, so it just takes a while. You have to be patient and just hope for the best. But it was worth the wait. I mean, the trouble with this now is I now want to see more Zemen's films, and the rest of them are hard to get hold, because this is his most famous one. The rest are even harder to find, so I'm now going to have to go through the frustration of trying to find more of them. But this is great. I mean, I really love The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, but this is better. This one is better, and it's cost a lot less, a hell of a lot less. The interesting with Zemen is he actually uses, he doesn't build sets, he uses the like flat cuts, like cutouts, the way Gilliam used to for Monty Python. And he does, like, in his foregrounds and backgrounds, everything's flat, so he emphasises the theatricality and the fakeness of what you're seeing. You're meant to put some of the imagination in yourself, which actually makes you more emotionally attached, if you have an imagination, to what's going on. But also brings out the fact that you're telling your story, so it gives a different feel to it. That's what I like about Eastern European fantasy, is it's fantasy, but it's based in a time during communism where that was a way to express the state of what was going on, because you couldn't step out and say, oh, communism is bad, because the communist dictatorships would throw you away somewhere in your cell. So you'd have to find ways around that. So it's always a deal with reality, but the facade of fiction. But also, because they didn't have much money, they used the idea of reality. There's this element of reality in it. You have to see the fantasy, but also see the reality below it. And that's what makes it great. That's what makes all these films great. You have to really interpret them. But it's not like an intellectual exercise of look how clever I am. It's like an expression of the times, an expression of the person and the social climate. So you get an undiluted feeling of the country through the art, because this is how they have to express themselves, and it's not just going to be this like intellectual code, this is what the communists have done, because it's also interesting in human beings and how they react, and how like fantasy and other elements are part of their lives, and how, because they're living under a fantasy ideology, you know, and they know it, and you could get put in jail for disagreeing with that, or even saying some mistake that shows you've got contempt for this ideology. So that creates interest in art. So you've got Svagmire and things like that. You've got films like Parting Guests, just great stuff. I mean, I spent way too much time and money in these kind of films, but I have no guilt, because they're so fascinating, because it is a way into a time that was under mass censorship. So you're not going to get a realistic or a humane version of those events. They have to be under the surface, and that's what's great about Eastern European art at the time in the 60s, 70s, things like that. And this is one of the more overtly fantastical, because it's dealing with old stories. It's dealing with a known liar, which is Baron Munchausen. And it's just beautiful, because it starts with a spaceship traveling to the moon, then finding fantastical creatures who just tear apart the cold logic of what we think of as real, which is spaceships going to the moon. Then there's creatures in there without helmets who just say, that's bollocks, this is how these things happen. And then the astronaut ends up travelling with Baron Munchausen through the past, through all these fantastical adventures with these cut out backdrops, so it's not even realistic backdrops, so it's like all this fantasy. You know, everyone watching the film at a time was living in, so it becomes a unusual film because of what's going on in the, you know, society it's made. So it's never a verb, but there's a feeling. It's actually showing a feeling of what it's like. But it's also a great adaptation of Baron Munchausen, because it's showing, because these stories are based on different basically things have been told person to person over the years. They've been written down, and now they're these stories, but they have a reflection of even the other cultures that have been refracted through the artist, and now put into this other culture that's under, you know, communist rule. So it comes out a different way. So it's fascinating how the stories evolve through time, and it creates its own little reality, which will then be reinterpreted later. Next time someone does Baron Munchausen, and the next time. So it's quite fascinating to see how these stories evolve through time. This is the best version of it, though. I mean, I'm not telling you any of the events that happened, because I'm sure if you've seen the Gilliam version, you've seen bits of the events that they follow here as well, but not the way they're done. You know, they're done in a very special way that's very intriguing. I don't want to kind of ruin it, because it's one of the things I got from this a lot, even when we're talking about the culture it came from, it's just delight at the way they did things, because it brought up a childish delight of how you remembered, how you imagined things when you were a kid, because they have that as well within the film, which you don't get very often. A lot of films now are so special effects driven, but they miss, you know, the kind of dreamy elements that some older films would have, or they just don't have the generosity in how they're created to actually be naive, because they're scared they might get mocked. So this film doesn't care about that, it just does it, and it works beautifully, but also is aware of other elements beyond what it is. So it exists in two levels. It exists on the level of, this is a great adaptation of Baron Munchausen, but it's also on a level of, this is a really fascinating culture that's created this film, you know, and there's lots of weird undertones to it. So it's a brilliant film. I'd say just go see it, just really just go see it as quickly as possible. It's beautiful, it's really beautiful. And it's probably one of my favourite films I've seen this year, really. It's really great, and I can't wait to see it again. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'll be back soon.